Have you ever heard of the incredible manga series known as Soul Eater by Otsushi Okubo? If you haven't, maybe you've heard of Fire Force by the same guy. Well, what if I was to tell you that his old assistant, the person he has labeled as his successor, has created their own manga, and it is by far one of the most engaging and beautiful mangas I have ever read. This is Kei Arana, and like I said, she is the self-proclaimed successor to Otsushi Okubo, and she made the manga GACHIAKUTA, which has become one of my favorite mangas of all time. For those of you who have absolutely zero idea what GACHIAKUTA is, I'm going to give you a brief rundown of the first 2 or so chapters. So pay attention, because if you don't listen to this, you will have no clue what's going on in the video. So, it starts off and we see that somebody, this person here, is stealing rubbish and turning it into something special. That person is Rudo. We see that Rudo lives on a place known as the Sphere. Okay, he is a sphere right. They live on the sphere. Essentially, what this is a floating island above something known as the Abyss. Just nothingness, a black nothingness. Now, we see that people dump all their trash and their villains and just people that aren't very nice into the Abyss, never to be seen again. But that happens to Rudo when he goes home and finds his father figure, Regto, has been killed. But when the police arrive, because of all the crying and screaming, it looks like Rudo has killed him, since he's the only one in the room with Regto. So, you might be assuming that Rudo gets dropped off into the Abyss for the crime of killing his father figure. And if you do assume that, you are absolutely correct, because that is what happens. Rudo is dropped into the Abyss. But whilst he's dropped into the Abyss, he screams something, he tells them something. He says that he is going to make every single one of them pay. He will be back, and he will get his revenge. However, when Rudo is dumped into the Abyss, we actually don't see black nothingness. Instead, we see clouds. We see a beautiful sky with an ominous looking figure in the background. I'm sure that means nothing, we can just ignore that, right? After seeing this and whilst falling, Rudo blacks out, and he then wakes up in this junkyard kind of place that spans the entire horizon. And that's when something happens. He gets chased by these things, these trash beasts. And by the way, just to make it simple, they are actually called trash beasts. They're beasts made of trash. So, they're kind of like the cursed spirits of this world. They're the normal enemy that you fight. So, just keep that in mind. Rudo tries to fight against them. He picks up rubbish, he tries to kill them, he slices them in half, but they just keep healing. And Rudo seems like he's about to get killed by them, but then somebody watches him from the distance. Somebody called Engine. He swoops in and he decides to give Rudo a lore dump on the entire world of GACHIAKUTA. Engine tells Rudo that trash beasts can only be killed by using Jinki, which is this manga's power system. He tells Rudo that no matter how much he damages it, slices it in half, beats it to a pulp, it will always heal, because you need a Jinki to kill it. Now, we're going to go on to the Jinki, because you might have just heard that word and think I've made it up on the spot, but I assure you that is genuinely what the power system in this manga is called. You see, a Jinki is a treasured object, okay? It's something that somebody holds dear. So Rudo has these gloves that you might have noticed, right? He wears them on his hand for the entirety of the manga, and they are his Jinki. He uses them to fight. It's a very cool Jinki, by the way, but I'm not going to spoil what it does, okay? So if you care that much, you can go and read, because you find out like in chapter 2 or something. And you see that Engine's Jinki is that he uses an umbrella. The umbrella he used to shade Rudo when he was telling him about how Jinkis work. And then we see other people with like scissors for Jinkis, staffs for Jinkis. You can literally have anything as a Jinki if you treasure it enough during your life. Now, there's 2 different kinds of Jinkis. There's defensive and there's offensive. We'll focus on offensive first, since that's the more common kind that you see in the manga. So, the way that an offensive Jinki is made is that if you pray and pray you can use this item to help you fight other people, then you will more than likely get an offensive ability with that Jinki. However, if you were to pray and pray that you got a defensive ability that you could help protect your friends with without having to do fighting, then your Jinki will more than likely be defensive. So, does that make sense? So you've got the defensive Jinki, where you pray that it doesn't hurt anyone and everyone stays safe. Offensive Jinki, you pray that you can hurt your enemies and protect the other people whilst doing so. This power system is really cool because it relates back to Japanese folklore, where they used to say if you took good enough care of an item, for instance a katana, it would sometimes gain a soul, and on very, very rare cases gain a personality. And I've not really seen this idea done in any other anime than origami. So, safe to say, I think it's very original, and it's cool that it relates to the culture that Kei Arana herself has grown up in. Anyway, going back to Engine. Like I said before, his Jinki is an umbrella. He can use it in many different ways because he's prayed for it to be used in many different ways. He uses it for shade when he's in the sun. He uses it to attack, doing like a spinny attack that he would go through the ceiling or walls. Or he just uses it to ride when he's like on a slope or something so that he doesn't have to walk down it. The reason that I'm telling you all this about Engine's Jinki is because the way a Jinki is used is not only on how you pray about how the Jinki will be used, but it's also about perspective and the ideas you have when using this Jinki. And I could go into more detail about that with Rudo's Jinki. However, I think it's such a cool Jinki that it's so much better for you to discover it whilst you are reading. So, after Engine has given Rudo this massive lore dump, he decides to invite Rudo to join the main cast in the manga. The good guys that are fighting off evil and trying to protect the world. The Janitors. See, the Janitors are made up of about 100 givers, which you might guess are people that use Jinki. And they're also made up of a few which are people who don't have Jinkis but still want to help make a difference and protect the world. So, like I said, this is where we meet the main cast. We meet Zanka, we meet Rio, we meet Gris, and we most of all meet Semiyu, who is my future wife. She just doesn't know that yet. We're also introduced to the villains of the manga, but all I'll say about them is that their intro is really cool and they are full of a few freaks that I would not want to go anywhere near. Anyway, that's enough of the story and the power system. It's time to now delve deep into something even more important, and that is the characters. So I'm going to list off a few characters and I'm going to tell you why I think they elevate the story of GACHIAKUTA so much to the point where it makes it such an immersive manga. First off is obviously our protagonist, Rudo. So, Rudo, like I said before, is a sphereite, somebody who comes from that sphere above me. And essentially, he's been dropped down into this world that is completely foreign to him, and he's trying to make his way back up, but he's also helping Engine and the Janitors save their world in the same time. Rudo is actually the reason I wanted to read this manga in the first place, because he gave me vibes of someone like Shinra. And the funny reason for that is because he can't properly smile like Shinra can. He's kind of a mix between Shinra and Denji because he gets very timid when he's around women, but at the same time he can't smile as if he was Shinra. And that shows that Kei Arana knows Otsushi Okubo because she has taken something that he's done in his manga and she's used it in hers to help create characters that are more appealing to the audience. Another cool thing that Rudo has is that he just goes on massive rage impulses. Like if he wants to do something and he has to do something that's seen as pretty horrible, he doesn't care. He'll do it anyway because his goal at the end of the day is to get back up and get revenge for the murder of Rector. There is also clearly an inner struggle within Rudo because even though he does spur of the moment things such as hitting people or straight up trying to kill them to achieve his goal, at the end he does end up regretting them and he wants to be a better person, but he can't do that if he keeps doing all of this. So we see the inner struggle unfold and it makes it so much more interesting to watch as it happens. Rudo has a lot of strengths, and I'll only name a few, but one of them is, like I said before, he doesn't care what he has to do to achieve his goal. He'll do whatever. like I said, whatever. And he kind of is the personification of whatever works, well, works. So that's a really cool thing to see unfold in the manga. This doesn't mean that Rudo has no flaws at all. It wouldn't be an entertaining manga if he didn't have any. However, I'll only bring up one, because I don't want to spoil a lot about the manga. And that thing is the fact that Rudo is very one-minded and can sometimes be quite selfish. You see, there's this chapter, which is essentially a slice of life chapter, where we're introduced to some of the cast that we've never met before. But we see Rudo is selfish in this chapter because he is eating sweets for the first time in his entire life. And obviously, since it's his first time ever eating sweets, he doesn't want to share. And because of that, he eats and he eats and he eats, and then eventually we see this thing right here. Rudo's gone from the skinny guy to that balloon, which, let's say, I'm going to be soon. But yeah, that was something really cool, because even though, you know, it's a slice of life chapter in a sense, we still got to see some character traits of Rudo that even puts forth the character development that we will probably see from him in the future. And Rudo also kind of has a straight up I don't give a fuck attitude when it comes to fighting his enemies. We straight up see that he flips someone the bird all whilst he's in the middle of a fight just because he doesn't like them. And it's really cool to see. It makes him an incredibly cool main character, and that also sometimes translates into when he talks to other people. So, talking of other people, we're going to talk about Zanka. This is Zanka. He, to me, looks a little bit like Yuta from Jujutsu Kaisen, and that's my second Jujutsu Kaisen reference this video. I'm hoping I don't go over 5, but just sue me, because I like that manga, so. He's part of the group that Rudo and Engine are in, like the group of like 5 people in the genres that you tend to find are the actual main cast of the manga. But he admires Engine. Engine is the person who trained him, and he has been tasked with training Rudo, which we haven't actually seen in the manga yet. I'm hoping we do soon though, because their dynamic, like I said, is really, really cool. Zanka is a very, very judgmental person, and I mean that. He is the kind of person where you would think he puts no effort into anything, but still always comes out on the top, you know? Like the person who's always getting like 100 out of 100 on a test, but never revises. But in actual fact, that's actually not what Zanka is like at all. Zanka is actually the person who probably trains the most out of everybody. But he doesn't let anybody know it, because he wants everyone to think that they're ants. And he's, like I said, very, very judgmental. He takes this and he shuns people. He shuns people because they're not as good as him, even though he's probably training twice as hard. And that's why I like his dynamic with Rudo so much, because Rudo has never trained a day in his life, but Zanka has now been tasked with training him. So he's judging Rudo, all whilst essentially trying to do to Rudo what he wants Rudo to do to himself. And that is such a cool dynamic that I love seeing unfold. Like any other character though, he has a lot of strengths. He's dedicated, he pursues through a lot of challenges, and he also puts other people first, which is something that you always like to see out of the main cast. And like I said before, he's very judgmental, which ends up being one of his weaknesses when it comes to him and his personality. He tries to sit on this super high horse, but he knows full well that he's just as talented as everyone else. It's just that he puts more effort into honing that talent than other people do. So, I mentioned before that Zanka got trained by this guy, Engine. And that gives me a good segue to talk about Engine. Engine is essentially the Gojo of this manga. He's cocky, he's the teacher, and he's all around probably the most powerful of the people that we know. Engine is, like I said earlier when I broke down the first 2 chapters, he's the person who saves Rudo and then recruits him to the janitors. He's the person that when he sees someone in need, he goes, then he helps the person because, well, he's a nice guy, he's just cocky. Because, like I said before, he's the Gojo of this manga. And third Jujutsu Kaisen reference, by the way. It's also been hinted a few times that he has a pretty sad past, but like, we haven't seen it yet, and I don't know if we ever will. I hope we do, fingers crossed, but at the moment, we don't really know much about him, so that's kind of all I have to say, other than the fact that he's super strong, super cocky. He's also really cool. He just brings life to this manga that you wouldn't see if he wasn't there, and it just makes it all that more entertaining to read. Engine has quite a lot of strengths, like I said before. He's strong, and he's just genuinely probably the strongest person that we've seen in the manga yet, other than Rudo, because Rudo is getting pretty powerful, actually, at the moment. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have any other strengths. Because when I say this guy is drippy, I mean it. Like, look at that, bro. That is his casual fit. And then this is his, like, fighting fit. And if this isn't drip, I don't know what is. Kate Orana just knows what she's doing when it comes to character designs and costumes. And the perspectives that she hits in this manga, oh, so good. I love them so much. And honestly, I wish every manga I read kind of gave people fits like this when it's appropriate. You don't want to see guts in like these baggy jeans and oversized top. Like, you don't want to see that. But when it comes to stuff like this, oh my god, it works so well and it looks so beautiful. Another person who has absolutely fire drip is Rio, who happens to also be part of Engine's group, which is there with Zanka and Rudo. Now, she is the person I said before uses scissors as her jinki because she used to be a hairdresser, or at least that's what she says she used to do, but there's something else that she used to do as well, which I won't spoil. But she kind of has an I don't care what I have to do, I'll do it mentality. And if that isn't a strength, I don't know what is, okay? Like I said before, she's very happy and she loves teasing Rudo, but she can just switch like that. And she can be dark and focused on achieving her goal, just like Zodil, the main villain of the manga. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of spoilers because I don't want to ruin it, but at the end of the day, he is a very, very edgy person, for lack of a better word. Now, I won't spoil a whole lot about Zodil, but I will say that at the end of the day, he is the main villain of the manga. And with that, it means that he's got some twisted goal when this one is bringing down the sphere and, you know, let it crash down onto the abyss so that he can stop all of the rubbish that's being dropped and hurting people in his world. That might sound like a good goal, but the way he goes about doing it is not very humane. It's actually very, very horrible and horrific. And we see that Rudo and him meet, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I will say that he has an incredibly cool moment whilst talking to Rudo. He tells Rudo that he doesn't like wasting words, and he gets to the point so quickly, and then he fights so quickly because he doesn't like wasting time or words. And that's something really cool because that's how you know there's not going to be a massive monologue from him, and unless if there is, it'll probably be at the end of the series when he's about to lose and he gives this massive monologue and he starts to waste words and time, and that would probably be a very gratifying moment for Rudo and everybody else on the janitors. Now we get onto the freakiest of freaks, okay? This guy is also a villain and he is so weird. I hate him so much, but at the same time he's such an amazing character. His name is Jabba, okay? And he's a masochist. And I don't mean in the sense of like, oh, I like hurting myself. It's in the sense of he gets, in his words, hard, yeah, when he gets hurt. And that is something that is so funny to watch, but at the same time so terrifying because no matter how much he gets damaged or hurt, or no matter how many punches Rudo lands on him, he just tries and tries and tries because at the end of the day, the more hurt he gets, the more he enjoys it. And that's something really cool that you don't see a lot of characters do in manga or anime in general. That's it for Jabba, literally nothing else. He's a masochist, that is him. He has no other traits other than being a masochist, and that's literally all I can say about his character. Now we get onto probably the best villain in the entire manga. His name is Fu, and we see he's going to fight Engine, and it's been about 50 chapters and the fight has still not happened. Instead, he's not done anything, actually. He is waiting for orders. You see, Fu is very scared to take orders, and that's his character trait. He's timid. We see, like I said, that he doesn't like thinking for himself, which means that if he's not told to do anything, he won't do it, and he's very scared. And that's such a cool dynamic because we see, like I said, he was meant to fight Engine like 50 chapters ago and it's still not happened, but I'm sure if they do fight, it's going to be a cool fight because the build-up will have been insane. Anyway, that's enough about the characters and the story and the power system. It's now time to talk about the world, okay? You see, we have the sphere, which is this flying island. We have the abyss, which isn't actually an abyss. Instead, it's a world below the sphere, which is just getting trash dumped down on it, and horrible people too, which is also trash, but you know, it is what it is. I just wanted to specify. We also see that it's got forests. It's got massive towers that try to get up to the sphere, and it's also just kind of filled with incredibly cool and original city designs, something you wouldn't see in other mangas because there's no reason for them to look the way they do in other mangas. It's so cool, and I've probably got them appearing behind me right now, but like, you just don't realize how cool they are unless you're reading and watching your characters that you're loving involved in the actual environment. The contrast between the sphere and the abyss is so incredibly cool. You go from Rudo being kind of shunned in the sphere because he's part of people known as tribesmen, which are descendants of criminals and just alright bad people. But then he goes down to the abyss, the world he's in for the majority, if not all, of the manga. And we see that he's actually a normal person there. It's probably that everybody who is from the abyss might have been all descendants of criminals. That doesn't mean in any way they're bad people, but it just means that Rudo fits in, whereas in the sphere he didn't. So, but they are not the only things in this world that are incredibly cool, because I named, like, you know, the desert, the tower, the forest. They're all known as no man's land. They're places where if you don't have a mask that you see most of the characters have, you would probably, well, not probably, you would definitely die because you're breathing in these chemicals and this horrible air that humans are just not meant to breathe in. And that's why they're called no man's land, because you're not going to see any normal characters or people who aren't integral to the story there. And that's when you see a silhouette in the distance, you know something cool is about to happen and the story is going to progress and you're just going to love where it goes. And please just don't get me started on the tower, okay? This tower is so cool. The amount of like theories that I have for this tower, or the implications that it has for where the story might go in the future and how the tower will be used, it's so cool, and there's so many mysteries that the tower has yet to answer. However, that's enough about the world, because now it's time to talk about the final piece of the puzzle. Okay? It's time to talk about not the story, not the world, not the characters, and not the gosh darn power system, okay? It's time to talk about the art style, because oh my god, when I tell you this art style is something out of my dreams, I mean it, okay? The graffiti, oh my god, and then the actual character designs. I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about engine, but the fits, oh my god, the fits are so cool, okay? It's not something you would see in many other mangas, but it's like Tokyo Ghoul. The fits go hard, okay? You don't see many other manga doing fits that look this good. This is from sort of a slice of life lore dump chapter, okay? I think maybe the same chapter about the sweets, okay? And we see all these outfits, these casual fits, and you're about to tell me they don't look incredibly cool and something that you'd love to see, like just them wear the entirety of the manga? No, they look sick. And that's just their casual fits, it's not their main character designs. And the thing that elevates this even more is the perspectives that the human bodies are drawn in this manga. There are some crazy ass perspectives in this manga. There are honestly some panels that you would think are taken in like 0.5 zoom on your iPhone. It's insane how well drawn they are. You get panels where it's straight up just eyes, okay? And they're like zoomed in at like 0.5, right? And it's like in Naruto when someone used to panic and the screen would just like wrap around their face. It's so cool, and it's something you don't see a lot. That shows just how much Kei Orana has studied the human body and how it looks from different angles and poses, okay? She could probably draw poses and stuff as cool as the ones you'd see in JoJo's. I'm not going to attempt any because I don't want to look like a massive loser. Dio pose. But it's even cooler when she's drawing these cool perspectives and these cool poses, but she also takes into account the paneling. The panels are so cool, because when somebody's having a nervous breakdown, or they're upset, or they're angry, or they're just not thinking straight, the actual paneling in this manga is changed. You see when somebody is very panicked and angry, for instance, Rudo has a breakdown, we see that the panels are like sketched, and they're not like drawn to the level that you would want them to be, because Rudo's mind itself is not at the level he would want it to be. And it makes you feel like you're there, experiencing that with the character, because you're not seeing the story straight, because the character isn't seeing the story straight, and it just makes it that much more entertaining to read. Finally, there's the hair. I love the way that hair is drawn in like clumps in this manga. It's incredibly cool, and it's something that you don't see really in other manga. And I can't tell you the amount of times that I've thought, this hair, I want it, but I know it would look so bad that I kind of just have to leave it and not dye my hair in that color. But maybe, you never know, I'll try it out one day, see it looks really bad, and shave it off, because hair isn't meant to look like that in real life. These are all the reasons why I love this manga without getting too heavy into spoilers, so I've not really spoiled anything, so you can still read it, or when the anime comes out, watch it without knowing what's going to happen. You just have a brief explanation of what the world will be like. But with that being said, I urge you, please go and read the manga. Like, it's so good. Kei Arana deserves all the love that she gets for this manga. And honestly, I hope it becomes as popular as Jujutsu Kaisen, which is my 5th Jujutsu Kaisen reference this video. But yeah, like I said, there's an anime coming out for it. It's been announced that it's going to be by Bones. And I've got to say, if we get the Blue Sky treatment, I swear to God, I'm going to kill... Okay.